Hello everybody, how's it going? ingeniousclown here, and those of you who know me know that I love Metroidvania games. In fact, one of my favorite franchises of all time is the Metroid franchise, with like Super Metroid being way at the top. I replay that game constantly, but I've played every game in the franchise with the exception of the very first, because by the time I got around to the franchise, it had aged poorly. But I did recently go back and play Metroid II because I was part of the Nintendo DS Ambassador. No, wait, it wasn't part of the Ambassador program. I just straight up bought it because I wanted to play it again because I had played it when I was younger. So I played through that again. It also hadn't aged well, but there have been some very talented people over the past like 10 years who decided that they also love Metroid 2 and that it hadn't aged well and that they're going to remake it from scratch. And that's what these people did. They created a game called another Metroid 2 remake, which I guess you can argue isn't exactly creating the game, but what they did do is create the engine in Game Maker, like from the ground up. I mean, I guess Game Maker gives you sort of a baseline to build off of, but what they did is they built it from the ground up. It's a standalone game that you can launch on your PC, you plug in a controller and you play it as if it were just any other old Metroid title on a console. But it's not on the console, it's just a standalone EXE. But I digress. The game is just an absolute blast to play. I had so much fun playing it. Those of you who watched my What Game Are You Hungry For? I think that's what I called it. Those of you who watched that video to the end probably heard me gushing about the idea of the remake and being excited to play it because I love Metroid. And over the next day, I played it, like just in one sitting, start to end. I was enthralled, enamored, I was sucked into the world because a Metroid game is something that we haven't had in, God, I don't know how long. The last one that we got was Metroid The Other M, which is not that great. Like, it wasn't a terrible game, but as a Metroid game, it really wasn't up to scratch, and the story was fucking awful. And then before that, I think the previous one was Metroid Prime 3, which was on the Wii. And the Metroid Prime series was pretty good, so those count. And I think the last 2D Metroid game that we got was Metroid Zero Mission, which was also incredible, but I played that back in high school. I'm 28 now, so you can probably imagine how long ago that was. But anyway, this is the first 2D Metroid title, the first new 2D Metroid title that I've played in a long time. And you might be wondering why I'm calling it a Metroid title, but in my opinion, after having played it and after having experienced it and just sucked it into my being through osmosis, this is exactly the Metroid game that me and so many other fans of this series have been wanting for such a long time. The Metroid game that Nintendo is refusing to give all of us. And these guys, with their own time, with their own money and their own knowledge, without asking for a dime from any of us, made this game. And then they gave it to us. On the 30th anniversary of Metroid, they gave us this game. They launched it. They publicized it. And it became big, and I haven't seen anybody dislike it. This is like, it's an incredible homage to what the Metroid franchise is about. It doesn't just take the Metroid 2 game from the Game Boy and give it modern graphics. It completely redesigns the game while still keeping to the core gameplay experience of what Metroid 2 was, which was hunting down all the Metroids on the planet SR388 and destroying them once and for all. All the story beats are there. All of, like, the overall map is mostly the same, with a few changes here and there, and extra secrets, and then extra movement mechanics to change things around. It plays a lot more like Zero Mission and Fusion did. Mostly Zero Mission. It plays a lot more like Zero Mission did, and less like the Game Boy one did, which didn't really control all that well, all things considered. It's an incredible game. It's an incredible game. If you're a Metroid fan, I wholeheartedly recommend going to find out where you can download it and download it. And I phrased it in that way because Nintendo, in all of their anti-consumer practices from their business side, maybe that's a little bit dramatic, but I'm sure you're already aware, if you're on YouTube, you're aware that Nintendo has this ridiculous program to where if you want to do anything with their games on your channel, you need to join the Nintendo Partner Program, whereas they take like 30-something% or more of your ad revenue on YouTube on top of the percentage that YouTube takes. It's a percentage of what you get. It's not like YouTube gets X and then Nintendo gets Y and then you're left with 100% minus X minus Y. It's not quite that bad, but it's still pretty ridiculous, especially considering like how every other company is on YouTube. There are exceptions, of course, but we won't get into that too much. But Nintendo has also DMCA'd the creators of Metroid and took the downloads, not the creators of Metroid, they took the downloads down for AM2R, another Metroid II remake. I don't know if it's just a knee-jerk reaction on Nintendo's part, or if this is something that they, as businessmen, saw and felt threatened by. Like, I hope it's just like the lawyers having some knee-jerk reaction to something that got a lot of publicity, because allowing this to be taken down, I feel, is a direct insult to the franchise and to the fans of the franchise as a whole, because of how good it is and how little attention has been paid to this franchise in the recent years. Now, if this is supposed to be some sort of defensive situation where Nintendo has been working on a 2D Metroid game, and maybe even a 3D Metroid game, or any of the two, and then they're like, oh, we can't have these guys stealing our thunder, then maybe it would be a little more forgiving, because then we'd be getting a game from them. But we haven't had any announcements, and we haven't had anything other than some Federation Strike Force garbage that nobody ever asked for, that's probably not going to be anything anybody wants in any capacity as far as Metroid fans go. But it's what we're getting, unfortunately. It just feels like it's just like a punch in the gut to people like me who have been craving this game and craving something from this franchise for so long. For those of you who don't know, this guy, like everything in this game is created from the ground up. It's custom sprite work. It's remixed music from the franchise. It's custom sprite work, like very well done custom sprite work, redesigned areas, and custom built engine, and Jesus, it's very impressive. It's very impressive. But man, it sucks to think about how this guy spent, like, I've heard it's about 10 years of his time, of his life, learning and figuring things out and just investing so much into this just to have Nintendo shit on it like they did. It just sucks, man. And not quite on topic, I also heard today of a Pokemon fan game of the same kind of style. I don't know how much they created from the ground up like the AM2R guys did, but it's called Pokemon Uranium, I believe, and they added 150 Pokemon that they created themselves, as well as adding a completely new type. And I don't know too much about the game, but I've seen articles that say it's like ridiculously ambitious, especially for a fan project. And I'm just like counting the seconds until that also gets taken down. It might have been by the time this video goes up, but as I'm speaking at the moment, it has not been taken down. But I'd be surprised if it didn't. Now, there's a lot of talk over on the Metroid subreddit about there being precedent for this game to be allowed to exist, and to like petition to Nintendo directly, Nintendo of Japan, to petition to them why this should exist. And while I'm not really holding out too much hope for this actually changing anything for this game, I think it could be a step in the right direction. If Nintendo really sees the fan base just get behind this game, and if they actually take the time out of their days to play it themselves and see how good it is, and see why people enjoy it, maybe, one, the game will come back and be downloadable without being anywhere questionably legal, like maybe be fully legal and endorsed by Nintendo. That would be awesome. And then, maybe, having seen the success of this game and the demand, of the people like us who want to see games like this come up and rise to the top, maybe they'll make something for us too. Maybe we'll get another official Nintendo 2D Metroid game, or maybe even something else along the lines of Metroid Prime. Maybe they'll retcon the other M completely. I don't know. The possibilities are endless. But maybe I'm just being too hopeful. I don't know. Man. I'm sad. I'm a little upset. Nintendo, I love your games, but can you stop? Can you stop being jerks? Now, I know I'm being a little dramatic. I know that copyright law is pretty much bullshit, and while it's nice that people are able to protect their product, their IP, their ideas, it's also just the way it works. It's dumb. If you don't do stuff like this against stuff that is potentially infringing on your copyright, which, let's be real, AM2R is definitely infringing on the Metroid IP. If you don't defend against this, no matter how actually financially harmless it is, it sets a precedent in the court of law that you don't care as much about your IP, and if something actually comes along that does threaten the main bottom line of what you're doing, if it does have some real financial implications at the time that it comes out, then the old thing suddenly has, it's set a precedent. Look, I don't know, I'm no lawyer. You could probably read up about this stuff anywhere. There's even a few posts on the subreddit that mention the same thing. If you dig it up, it probably shouldn't be too hard. It's probably better than listening to me stutter and ramble through it at any rate. But yeah, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, if you made it all the way to the end of my whining, I'd like to know what you think about all of this stuff. Like what you think about fan games like this, and especially the very well-produced ones such as this, and what kind of place that you think that they have in the gaming world, and whether or not you think Nintendo is in the right, and if they are in the right, whether or not you think they should just, you know, let it go. Anyway, please do let me know what you think in the comment section below. I would love to hear it. And if you like this video, please do hit that like button. It definitely helps me out quite a bit. And if you haven't already, be sure to follow me on Twitter to get updated whenever I do a new video, and subscribe for that same thing, because there's all sorts of ways to get notified of when new videos come out. Anyway, I've been Ingenious Clown, and I will see you next time.